So let's move on here. Week 9 predictions. And no, that is not Zan there that you see on the screen. It is ZKS. Zan is out this week, and ZKS, our friend, is filling in for him. So he will be picking for us. Zan already made his picks, so we'll show you guys those as we go along here. But let's move on here, man. Week 9 games. Let's get going. Let's start out in Pullman. Thursday night game, Utah. 7.5-point favorite on the road at Washington State. What is your pick here?
Well, Shoob, I like Utah on the money line here. I think Utah does win the game, especially coming off a bye. Given the absurdity, though, of Pac-12 weeknight games, I'm going to take Wazoo to cover the 7.5. So I got Utah winning the close one.
Nice. So last week, I feel like I did very well against the spread, but went 4-6 picking games straight up. And I feel like a lot of the reason behind that was because I just didn't have the stones to pick the teams that I liked against the spread to just win outright, i.e. Liberty and Oklahoma State. But this week, when I have a team that I like against the spread as an underdog, especially a team that is at home on a Thursday night in Pullman, this just screams upset to me. I'm picking Wazoo. Give me Wazoo over Utah in this game outright. Like I said, man, I think Utah is the better team, but on Thursday night in particular, I don't know what it is. It just screams upset alert to me. Washington State, they've played teams like USC very well. They're coming off of a loss to Oregon State. I just think that Washington State's going to pull it together here. Utah has not been perfect this year. They got that big win over USC, but they still are a little bit suspect, especially defensively. And I'm just kind of feeling the Cougs here, and I'm going to roll the dice here. I'm not going to hedge picking Utah to win. I'm going to say Wazoo wins this game outright. And then as far as Zan, he picked Utah to win and cover. So he's not liking Wazoo in this at all. And big disagreement here. So we got 3 different results between the 3 of us. Very interesting to start us off here. But let's move on here. One of the bigger games of the week, number 2, Ohio State on the road at number 13, Penn State. Ohio State is a 15.5-point favorite. What's your take here?
Well, the straight-up pick was a no-brainer, Ohio State. So I'm not worried at all about that. The spread, the 15.5, they tried to make me think, no, this is my time, 11 a.m. kickoff. This is big noon kickoff. They're going to win this game by more than 2 touchdowns. I'm taking Ohio State to cover the spread as well. I think Penn State comes back down to earth, and Ohio State starts really getting the juice going and showing why they are a legitimate national title contender who can be taken serious. They put 40 against Penn Saturday.
Yeah, so this game is pretty interesting. I really was not impressed by Ohio State last week against Iowa. And I know a lot of you may be thinking, well, they won by 40 points. What do you mean by that? Well, if you really look at that game, Iowa's ineptitude offensively really set up Ohio State with short field position all throughout that game. And besides late in the second half, Ohio State's offense really didn't play that well. Yeah, they won 54-10, but Ohio State's offense really wasn't that great until the very end. And just a little bit of a red flag for me. And then if you look at Penn State, you look at what they did against Michigan, and then the week later, they blow the doors off of Minnesota, and Sean Clifford looks like he was reborn or someone else put on a different jersey that day. But it's like, which Penn State team are we going to get in this game? And frankly, I just can't trust Penn State. I can't trust Penn State. And even though I just mentioned the red flag about Ohio State's offense, I'm with you. I think they get it together, and I think Ohio State rolls in this game. I like them to cover this spread. You know, in recent years, Penn State hasn't been able to get Ohio State. Ohio State's kind of had their number the last 5 or so years. So I like the Buckeyes in this one. And you're right, it's going to be a big statement win. And Zan agrees with us both. He has Ohio State covering and winning this game outright as well. Buckeyes all the way between the 3 of us. So let's move on. Notre Dame in the Dome against Syracuse. Syracuse coming off that loss to Clemson. Cuse are a 3-point favorite. This is an interesting matchup. What's your take here?
Not as confident in this. I'm taking Syracuse both ways. I think Syracuse wins the game, and I think they cover a field goal spread. At worst, maybe I'm pushing here. But Notre Dame, I have seen enough of Notre Dame to see that the offense just is what it is. They've struggled against the Marshalls and the Stanfords and Syracuse. I think it's good they got brought back down to earth after that Clemson loss. The Dome's going to be rocking. Syracuse is beating the Irish this Saturday.
I love it. I love the faith in Syracuse, man. After the game against Clemson, I'm sure a lot of people watched that game. Syracuse probably a bit fortunate to hang around there and keep that one close. I mean, Clemson did turn the ball over 4 different times. They were kind of begging Syracuse to hang around in that game, and Clemson really messed around and almost lost that. But in the second half, Clemson really shut them down, and I know Notre Dame's got a very solid defense as well. I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm taking the Irish to win this game. Now, I feel really awful doing this because I love Syracuse this year. I've loved what I've seen from them, but I think Notre Dame, the version of Notre Dame that we got against North Carolina when they beat the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill, I think we're going to get that version of Notre Dame. I just kind of feel like that's what's going to happen this week. I think it's going to be a bit of a coming back down to earth for Syracuse, unfortunately, but we'll see. Not super confident in this one, but I got Notre Dame going both ways. And then Zan took the easy way out on this one. He took Syracuse to win and then Notre Dame to cover. Yeah, since he's not here, I'm going to give him crap for that. He's hedging. He's hedging big time here. So he's clearly not confident. I'll speak on his behalf, or you can just tell by hedging there. But so, hey, another three different picking outcomes there between the three of us. So you love to see it. So this next game, there's no hedging here. There's no easy out. This is a PK, a pick'em, which means the spread is dead even. Cincinnati on the road at UCF. This is a very big game in the American Conference. This has American Conference title implications at stake. Who do you think wins?
UCF, money line and straight and on a cover. Here's my logic. Cincy beat Tulsa by 10, beat USF by 4. By the way, those are arguably 2 of the worst teams in the American, and that includes Temple. So 2 of the 3 worst teams, and then beat SMU by 2. They're coming to bounce house, and I think UCF gets right and beats Cincy. I don't want to say fraudulent, but that 6-1 is not at all a steady 6-1 for the Bearcats. So give me UCF both ways.
Oh, absolutely. And UCF, it was one of our best bets last week, and they disappointed us against East Carolina, but they did turn the ball over in the red zone multiple times. They just didn't finish drives. UCF really has looked good ever since they took that loss early in the year to Louisville. They dominated FAU. They dominated Georgia Tech. They dominated SMU, and they dominated Temple. UCF's playing pretty well, and John Reese Plumlee, he seems to have figured it out and has been like reborn in a sense in this Gus Malzahn offense. And you're right. It's Cincinnati. It's at the bounce house. Like UCF is not going to throw up a dud like they did against East Carolina. UCF is going to come out and play their A+ game. And I fully expect that. And also for Cincinnati, I'm not going to expect Cincinnati to be sleepwalking in this game like they have been in recent weeks. I would expect Cincinnati to play their A game as well. But when UCF and Cincinnati play their A game, I kind of think UCF's a better team. And UCF's at home. The bounce house will be rocking, and I like UCF to win this game as well. So it does worry me that all 3 of us picked UCF. Zan take UCF as well. So
book that.
Maybe
Cincy.
We just locked up a Cincinnati W, but we're all riding the Knights. We're all riding that bounce back. We think that ECU loss was a bit of a fluke, so we like the Knights in this game. But that'll be an interesting one. I think either way, it's going to be a good game. These two low-key have sort of built a little bit of a rivalry with one another, and that will continue when they both go to the Big 12 next year. But let's move on. This game is definitely not a PK. Georgia, the cocktail party, 22.5-point favorite in Jacksonville against the Gators. We're picking this because it's a rivalry game. The slate is not as juicy this week. I know it's a 22.5-point spread, but it's still Florida, Georgia, so we're going to pick it. So what's your take here?
Well, Shoob, first of all, I'm happy you referred to the game by its rightful name. So like a true college football fan, you're right on the nose. Shoob, I'm looking at past UF Georgia matchups, and only a handful of times has either team really just dominated the other. I mean, last year, yeah, it was a 27-point margin for Georgia, but that's including 3 just absurd first half turnovers that the Gators had last year. So to get to the meat of this, Georgia's winning the game. I have no doubt in that. Though I am prepared to live bet if something weird happens early. But give me UF to cover. You're giving me 3 touchdowns, 22.5 points, a team that clawed its way back to almost beating Tennessee. No, 3 touchdowns with the Gators. I laid this with my own money. I mean, this is a DKS best bet right now. You just heard it online. UF, my plus 22.5 against the defending national champion.
Wow. Faith in the Gators covering there. So
to cover. Yes, let's make sure to cover. Absolutely.
Right. No, we don't want to get it twisted here. And I'm in agreement on who wins this game. I mean, I have to be a maniac to pick UF to win this game. There's just no way that UF wins this game right now. Georgia's roster is just too talented. There's a huge talent discrepancy right now between these teams. And Georgia's very well coached as well. Both teams had a bye week to prepare for this. So I think UGA wins. And yeah, that 22.5 on the spread is very interesting. UF covering this is all you're asking is, hey, Gators, can you keep it within 3 touchdowns? Can you just be somewhat competitive? Just be somewhat competitive. And you guys both picked Florida to cover. Zan also taking Florida to cover as well. I'm having a very hard time trusting this UF team right now. But after seeing the way that LSU played and embarrassed Ole Miss, it made that UF loss to LSU look a little less embarrassing. And we've seen the Gators play well against teams like Utah, who they beat in the opening week of the season, and also play well against Tennessee, who they only lost to by 1 score in Knoxville. So I'm kind of feeling UF giving Georgia a good game here to a certain extent. And I'm with you guys. I'm going to pick the Gators to cover, though I'm not very confident in it, but I think UF will be relatively competitive. So we're all liking the Gators to cover here. Very interesting. So now let's move on. Another big game in the Big 12. The Big 12 is just sending out bangers every single week this year. Number 9, Oklahoma State on the road against number 22, Kansas State. Oklahoma State coming off that big win against Texas. Kansas State lost against TCU. Both of these teams have one loss in conference play, so the winner of this game will be in a very good spot potentially to get to the Big 12 championship game. And it's a very close spread. Kansas State's only a 1.5-point favorite at home. So what's your read on this game?
The battle of the teams that blew double-digit leads to TCU. I love it. Let me give you a fun stat, Shoob. So when I picked Kansas State straight up, I'm 3-0. When I picked Oak State straight up, I'm 4-1. You want to talk about some pretty good numbers for both these programs.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. I run with this team a lot. I put some faith in this team when others think I'm crazy. Rightfully so, though, about me being crazy. Dude, give me the Pokes both ways. I'm taking the Pokes to win, and I'm taking the Pokes to cover that 1.5. Or I'm getting that 1.5, yeah. No, give me the Pokes. I just got faith. They're going to come in. It's going to be messy. It's going to be close, but they're going to find a way to get into Manhattan and get that W.
I like it. So my opinions of both of these teams sort of have definitely evolved over the course of the season. I was less high on Oklahoma State relative to most people up until last game. But that last game against Texas, it sort of flipped my opinion on Oklahoma State. This Oklahoma State team was down 6 starters. Spencer Sanders was dealing with a shoulder injury. Everyone and their mother was picking Texas to win this game. Me and Zan both picked Texas. All the sharp bettors were hammering Texas. This line moved from 2.5 all the way to nearly a touchdown, which is very rare. That just shows all the money that was on Texas in this game. And yet Oklahoma State still won. They played a bunch of true freshmen, and they found a way to win this game against Texas. I was very impressed with Spencer Sanders. Spencer Sanders, just an absolute baller, playing through a shoulder injury and everything. And I think this Oklahoma State team has the depth to survive what is a gauntlet right now in the Big 12 conference. All of these games are close spreads. All these games are very close. And as far as Kansas State, they really impressed me against TCU as well. Despite losing Adrian Martinez, Will Howard, the backup quarterback, he played fairly well in my opinion. And I think Kansas State, if you were to replay that game against TCU, I would still probably take Kansas State to win that game, even with Adrian Martinez being healthy, let alone that. So these two teams, it's going to be very interesting. I'm with you. I'm going Oklahoma State to win this game. I think Oklahoma State's just a better team, not by a whole lot, but I think OSU is just a better team. And even though it's in Manhattan, I just really like what I saw from Oklahoma State last week against Texas. And we're still very uncertain right now. It's Tuesday about the quarterback situation for Kansas State. We don't know if it's going to be Will Howard or Adrian Martinez, which one of them is healthy. But either way, I think it'll be close. I think it'll be very competitive. But I have Oklahoma State winning. And Zan agrees with us both. He's taken Oklahoma State to win and cover as well. So that kind of worries me that all three of us have taken Oklahoma State. So again, it's the Cincinnati principle. Now I think we just locked up a Kansas State win since we've all taken the Pokes, but we'll see how that one plays out. So now let's move into the SEC, a battle of two ranked teams in the East. Number 19, Kentucky in Knoxville against number 3, Tennessee. Tennessee's a 12.5-point favorite. Very interesting matchup, especially with what's going on a week from now. What's your take in this game?
Definitely trap game territory, especially with a game of the week looming. But also, Shoob, I took UT Martin to cover against these guys, and they blew the doors off them last week. So you want to talk about a team that was just not content with getting the biggest win in program history in 15 years versus Alabama a couple weeks back. I think Heupel has these guys stay on the gas pedal, realizing if they slip up against Kentucky, I mean, regardless of, I mean, yeah, you can still beat Georgia straight up and be fine, but don't even put yourself in that position. I think they do win the game, and I think they cover and win by 2 touchdowns. So I'm going Vols both ways.
Nice. CKS rolling with the Vols both ways. So I was kind of back and forth on this game in terms of the spread. I do think Tennessee will win. I don't really see Kentucky being able to win this game unless some really crazy stuff happens, like Hendon Hooker getting hurt or something like that. But I mean, simply Kentucky just doesn't have the firepower to go toe-to-toe with this Tennessee offense. I think everyone knows that. If Kentucky's going to play this game close, let alone even have a chance to win this game, it's going to be the classic ball control, play keep away from this Tennessee offense. And I do also trust this Kentucky defense. Like, this Kentucky defense is very solid, and that coaching staff always comes up with good game plans against good offenses. So I do think that they will kind of be able to hold Tennessee in check. However, that line is at 12.5, which is just begging you to take Tennessee to cover there. It's very tough for me, but I'm going to take Tennessee to win this game. But I think Kentucky will cover. And I'm not super confident in it, but I don't think Tennessee is just all of a sudden immune to the trap game syndrome here. I think Tennessee will sort of mess around with Kentucky a little bit. I think Kentucky will play him well, but I like the Wildcats to cover here. It just screams trap game to me. And Zan agrees with me as well. He's taken Tennessee to win and also Kentucky to cover. So we'll see how this one goes, but I haven't really seen enough from Heupel and Tennessee. They haven't gotten that vintage Nick Saban lock from me where I know that even in a trap game situation, they're going to cover their spread. They haven't earned that for me yet. So we'll see. This could change my mind, however, if this goes in a different direction. But let's move on here. How about another rivalry game? Michigan State having a bit of a down season on the road against number 4 Michigan. Michigan's a 22-point favorite. What's your take here?
Well, we obviously know that Michigan State is not even remotely close to what they were last season. That being said, I like them to cover. Michigan's winning this game. That's a no-brainer. But I do think it's going to be close, given the nature of how these games have gone. I'm mad I forgot what the rivalry game itself is called. But these are usually
Michigan State's had their number in recent years.
Yeah. So give me Michigan the win, because they're definitely on one this year, and they've been looking great, the Wolverines have. But I think State hangs around and makes a Big Brother sweat a little bit. And I do say Big Brother because I still think that Michigan is even though Michigan State has kind of owned them recently, historically and brand-wise, Michigan is I think, viewed by the country as the more bigger power of the two, though State has had the more success recently. But yes, Michigan wins, State covers.
Well, we see a lot in rivalry games where the big brother sort of dominates the little brother, and the little brother deals with what we call little brother syndrome, where they just can't get out of their own way. And it's a mentality that they always face when facing their big brother in rivalry games. Well, yes, Michigan State, you could still call him the little brother, but this little brother has beaten up the big
He
brother a lot in
he
recent memory.
he's
And
6'3", and Michigan's like 5'11". It's that kind of little brother.
right, exactly. The little brother is a little bit big, is pretty strong sometimes. But anyways, 22-point spread. Man, I know Michigan State's having a very poor year. They did get a good win against Wisconsin when they were a 7-point dog in that game. So maybe this Michigan State team is potentially bottomed out this year and they have a strong end of the season after a disappointing start. It's Michigan State, man. This game just never fails to have some weird stuff in it. There's always some wacky, fluky stuff, and it always, without fail, always goes in Michigan State's favor in this game. And when you're giving me 22 points, you are just begging me to take Michigan State to cover this spread. Now, no, I'm not picking them to win. I'm not going to be a maniac, but Michigan wins, but Michigan State's going to cover. This might be competitive. Like, we talk about Iowa and how Iowa always seems to do voodoo in the locker room and make some crazy stuff happen in games and get these turnovers and stuff. Michigan State does voodoo in the locker room and black magic before they play Michigan. And there's going to be some weird stuff in this game. It happens every single year. Michigan State covers. And yeah, I think they might give Michigan a scare. I would be very impressed if Michigan were to just dominate Michigan State and just put them away, because they have not been able to do that in recent memory. So with that being said, Zan disagrees with us. Zan has Michigan covering the spread and winning the game outright. So Zan likes a Michigan blowout. I'd be very shocked to see that, to be honest, but we'll see. So now moving on here, back into the SEC, number 15, Ole Miss, coming off their first loss against LSU last week. They are only a 2.5-point favorite on the road in College Station at Texas A&M. What's your take here?
Well, this is a battle of who's going to get off the mat. As we explained, Ole Miss gets a little exposed and gets it handed to them in Tiger Stadium. Texas A&M doesn't shock the whole world, but unexpectedly loses to South Carolina on the road. Hotty toddy, both ways. I think Ole Miss gets back on schedule, and I think they cover the spread. 12th man, yeah, I get it, but they're getting into dumpster fire mode over there in College Station, between threats of people transferring, people not showing up to practice. They're writing articles about the dog peeing in Jimbo's locker, and they're putting the dog on admin leave as a joke just to deflect from how terrible things are getting over there. No, Lane Kiffin's coming in, and they're getting this dub. Give me the Rebs both ways.
So I talked about how I'd have to be a maniac to pick Florida to beat Georgia and to pick Michigan State to beat Michigan. Well, I kind of feel like I'm going to be a bit of a maniac to make this pick here, but I'm picking Texas A&M to win this game. I know. But listen, my motto for this year has been, when things are going really well, it's not as great as it seems. And when things are going very poorly, it's not as bad as it seems. And right now, things seem to be a dumpster fire right now in Aggie land. And listen, I'm going to put on my level head here. That South Carolina game last week, listen, a lot of those turnovers that A&M had, like the one that hit off of Haynes King's shin and went right to the defensive end that returned it the other way, like that stuff's very fluky. That stuff's not going to happen all the time. A kickoff return to open the game, that stuff normally doesn't happen. Post-game win expectancy also agreed. A&M probably should have won that game more often than not. It wasn't as bad as everyone's making it out to be. And Ole Miss, I like Ole Miss a lot. I wasn't surprised that they got dominated by LSU in the second half there. I think a lot of people probably saw that one coming. We both picked LSU last week, but I still think Ole Miss is a very solid team. But I think this is where the Rebels sort of start racking up some L's here. And I don't know, man. It just seems like one of those games where A&M's just going to get a win here. They're just going to get a win. It's still going to be ugly at the end of the year. It's still going to be a dumpster fire in 3 weeks, but they're still probably going to pick up a win here and there. And I just feel like this is just going to be one of those games where they just pick up a win. I don't know how, but they just do, because this A&M roster is still very good. And I just don't see how it can get any worse than it already is. And I don't know why, but I'm just kind of feeling them just winning this game. It's sort of like not using, logic to void and all that. I just feel A&M. So give me the Aggies to win and cover, but we'll see. That one could make me look really stupid, but I think the spread does the talking. There's a reason why it's only a 2.5 point game there.
They still have a good defense. Their defense didn't just disappear overnight. It's just, will the offense be able to keep up with Ole Miss? But if Ole Miss plays like they did against LSU, then absolutely. So no, it is not unreasonable at all to think that A&M at home can get right and pull this off.
Yeah, it's not something I'm super confident in, but we'll see. We'll see. But I think when the spread is sitting there at 2.5, it does a lot of talking. But let's move on here. The final game of this slate, Baylor versus Texas Tech, 2 4-3 teams, both of them at 500 in Big 12 play. Texas Tech coming off of a big beatdown of West Virginia. They won that game by 38 points. And Baylor, after taking a few losses earlier in the year, they've won a few games recently. So two teams looking to sort of get on the right side of 500 here. It's in Lubbock. Tech is a 3-point favorite. What's your pick in this game?
So I know Texas Tech has been the darling in recent weeks, and I know in Lubbock they have been an absolute thorn in the sides of many teams. But for me, seeing Baylor as an underdog, and I love Dave Aranda, I'm taking Baylor both ways. I think Baylor scraps out a win, and they're built to scrap out wins. Dave Aranda, that man's heartbeat does not go over whatever the requisite RPMs are, beats per minutes are. And they're getting points. Yeah, give me the Bears. I mean, this is the same team that challenged itself and went to Provo when they did not need to play BYU. And yeah, they lost, but a game like that gets you ready for a game like this in conference. So yeah, I think they go to Tech and make me some money on the money line and cover, getting some points. Go Bears, sick them.
Interesting. So, again, my motto, I've already said it. Texas Tech, they won by 38 points last week. Texas Tech fans got to be feeling themselves. This team's got to be feeling itself right now. They're on the up and up right now with Joey McGuire. When things are going really well, it's not as great as it seems. Give me Baylor. Give me Baylor. I'm with you. This just screams to me Texas Tech coming off of a massive win. This is the classic spot. We've done it so many times this year when a team just dominates a game and looks really good, and we praise them here on this podcast, and then they just drop a stinker the next week. It's happened so many times this week, and unless you have a roster like Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State, you are susceptible to these types of coming back down to earth here. And this just screams coming back down to earth for Texas Tech. I know they're at home, which helps, but you're right, man. Dave Aranda and Baylor, like, it's kind of like with Matt Campbell and Iowa State. It's like, don't fade Dave Aranda when it seems like things aren't going well for Baylor this year. Like, this just seems the perfect time to buy stock low in Baylor. I see them power rated right now as just inside the top 20. Tech is almost up there too. So these two teams are very solid, but this one just screams Baylor bounce back, Dave Aranda just kind of getting it done and sort of fading the hype, if you will. So that's my reasoning for this pick. And as far as Zan, come on, man. He's taking the easy way out again. He took Tech to win. He took Baylor to cover. Man, Tech is a 3-point favorite, but I think either way, the spread does the talking. It should be a relatively close game. I would expect it to be competitive. So that's it for our Week 9 results. Should be another great week. A lot of rivalry games.
Mountaineer Nation, let's ride. Mountaineer Nation, let's ride. Mountaineer Nation, let's ride.